Dogs share our homes, our routines, and very often our personal space. And if you have lived with one long enough, you have probably noticed something that feels a little unsettling the first few times it happens. You pull into the driveway, or step off the elevator, or walk down the hallway toward your front door, and before you even touch the handle, your dog is already there, sitting, waiting, sometimes staring directly at the door like they have been standing guard for a while, tail already wagging as if you announced yourself in advance, even though you know for a fact they spent most of the day asleep in at least 3 different locations, rotating like a rotisserie chicken and somehow still managing to wake up at exactly the right moment. You pause for a second because it does not make sense. You did not knock, you did not make a noise, you did not text the dog to let them know you were on your way. And yet there they are, perfectly positioned, acting like this was always part of the plan. Most of us laugh it off and say something like, "Oh, they just know," or "Dogs have a sixth sense." Or maybe we joke that our dog has access to some secret network that tracks human movement in real time. But that moment sticks with you because it feels personal. It feels like your dog was waiting for you, not just anyone who might open the door. And the longer you live with a dog, the more often it happens, until one day you realize this is not a coincidence at all. It is a pattern. Once your dog understands very well, even if you do not, and the truth behind it is not magic. It is something much quieter, much older, and honestly far more impressive. Welcome to Just Paw Facts. Have you ever noticed your dog always seems to be waiting at the door before you open it? How do they do that? Are they magic? Can they tell time? Well, today we are going to uncover this very real behavior. Dogs do not understand time the way we do, and people say that a lot without ever stopping to think about what it really means. We tend to imagine it as a limitation, like dogs are missing something important because they do not know what 3:30 is or how long just a few minutes actually feels. But the truth is that dogs are not missing time at all. They are surrounded by it. They move through the day immersed in it, noticing shifts and changes that we tune out almost completely. From your dog's point of view, a normal day is not divided into hours or appointments, but into a series of states that flow into one another. Morning feels one way, the house feels alive, full of movement, sound, and intention. Then at some point you leave and the house changes, the air settles, the sounds soften, the energy pulls inward, and your dog experiences that change not as absence, but as a new phase of the day beginning. During the long, quiet hours that follow, the hours we tend to think of as nothing happening, your dog is still paying attention. They notice how the light slowly crawls across the floor and disappears from their favorite nap spot, forcing them to relocate with the mild annoyance of someone whose perfectly good plan has been ruined by the sun. They notice when the warmth shifts, when the house smells still instead of active, when the outside noises stretch out and lose their sharp edges. From the outside, this looks like a dog doing nothing all day, but from the inside, this is a very serious schedule involving naps, repositioning, and checking whether the world is behaving the way it usually does. At first, when a dog is new to your life, these patterns do not mean very much. They know you leave and they know you return, but the timing feels uncertain, even emotional. Over time, though, something changes. Without anyone ever teaching them, dogs begin to connect dots. They notice that after the house has been quiet for a long while, it always wakes back up again. They notice that the stillness never lasts forever. They notice that certain feelings in the house tend to be followed by your arrival. This learning does not happen all at once. It happens slowly through repetition. One day blends into the next. The same quiet stretch, the same subtle shifts, the same ending, and eventually your dog's brain stops wondering if you will come back and starts recognizing when you usually do. Waiting transforms from something anxious into something familiar, almost comfortable. Instead of pacing, your dog begins positioning themselves closer to the door, not because they are worried, but because this part of the day feels known now. When your dog lifts their head or gets up and moves toward the door before you arrive, they are not thinking in numbers or minutes. They are responding to a feeling, that has settled into their body over hundreds of days spent living alongside you. This is the moment when the house starts to feel like it is about to change again. This is the part of the story where you usually walk back in. To us, it feels like a mystery. To your dog, it feels like recognition. They do not need a clock to tell them what comes next. They have already learned how the day ends. Smell is the part of this story that feels hardest for humans to imagine properly because it asks us to think about time in a way we rarely do. We notice smell when something is strong or surprising or urgently needs to be dealt with, and then our brains move on, but dogs do not move on. For them, smell is always present, quietly shaping the world in the background, changing slowly enough that it feels invisible unless your brain is built to notice it. To your dog, your house is not just a place where things happen. It is a space filled with layers of scent that rise and fall throughout the day, like invisible footprints left behind by everything you do. When you are home, your smell is fresh and active. It moves as you move. It clings to you and follows you from room to room, which is why dogs so often insist on sitting exactly where you just stood, even though there are many other perfectly good spots available. When you leave, that smell does not disappear. It stays behind in small, ordinary places you barely remember touching. The chair where you sat for a few seconds, deciding whether you actually needed a jacket. The counter where you leaned while you checked your phone one last time. The doorway where you paused and said you would be right back. A phrase your dog has learned to interpret more as a comforting theory than a strict timeline. Your scent settles into these places and then, very slowly, it begins to change. At first, when you are newly gone, your scent still feels close. The house smells like you are just in another room. The waiting feels shallow, like it could end at any moment. But as time passes, something subtle shifts. Your scent thins, not dramatically, not all at once. Just enough that your dog's nose can tell the difference between now and earlier, the same way your eyes can tell the difference between morning light and afternoon light without you ever stopping to measure it. Dogs are remarkably good at noticing this kind of quiet change because their ancestors needed to be. In a world where survival depended on knowing where others were and how long they had been gone, smell became a way of tracking time without seeing it. That ancient ability did not disappear when dogs moved into our homes. It simply adjusted. Now it tracks the rhythm of your day instead of the movement of a pack across a landscape, which is a much safer job but still taken very seriously. Over weeks and months, your dog begins to learn the emotional shape of your scent. They learn what the house smells like when you have just left, when the day is still wide open and anything could happen. They learn what it smells like halfway through, when the waiting has settled into routine, and eventually, they learn what it smells like near the end, when the air itself seems to say this part usually does not last much longer. This is not something your dog thinks about consciously. It is something their body recognizes. The house reaches a familiar stage. The scent feels complete in a way that is hard to describe but easy to feel if you have experienced it enough times. It is the smell of almost, the same way dinner has a smell before it is ready, or rain has a smell before it actually starts, except in this case, the thing arriving is you. This is often the moment when your dog stirs from a nap, not suddenly, not dramatically, just a small shift, a head lift, a stretch, maybe a slow walk toward the front of the house, as if they are casually checking on something they already expect to find. From the outside, it can look like perfect timing. From the inside, it feels more like responding to a cue that has been quietly building all afternoon. Your dog does not smell you arrive. They are smelling the day arrive at its familiar ending. The house no longer smells like waiting. It smells like the part where waiting usually stops. And because your dog has lived through this ending so many times before, they already know exactly where they want to be when it happens. Sound is the part of this behavior that makes dogs seem almost unfairly observant because they are not just hearing more than we do, they are remembering it better. Humans tend to notice sound when it interrupts us, when something is loud or unexpected or annoying enough that we cannot ignore it. But dogs experience sound as a steady landscape, a familiar arrangement of noises that belong exactly where they are. When something shifts inside that landscape, even slightly, it matters. Once you have lived with a dog for a while, you stop being just a person to them and become a collection of sounds they know intimately. Your footsteps have a rhythm that belongs to you. Your keys have a particular jingle that means something very different from every other jingle in the world. Even the way your shoes hit the floor changes depending on whether you are leaving in a hurry or coming home tired. And your dog notices these differences with the kind of attention we usually reserve for our favorite song coming on the radio unexpectedly. This is not something your dog consciously studies. It settles into them over time. Just like you learn to recognize a loved one's voice through a wall or down a hallway. Without ever needing to think about it, your dog learns the sound of you simply by living alongside you. Eventually, those sounds become part of the house's normal language, so familiar that your dog barely reacts to them unless they appear out of order. So when you are on your way home, your dog does not need the front door opening to understand what is happening. They hear the early pieces first. The way traffic outside shifts in tone. The elevator stopped on the right floor. The faint echo of movement in the hallway sounds just enough like you to make their ears lift slightly, even if they do not fully wake up yet. These sounds arrive quietly, one at a time, long before you do. At first, this recognition does not look like excitement. It looks like alertness. A head lifts, an ear turns. Your dog adjusts their position as if they are suddenly interested in being more awake than they were 5 seconds ago. From the outside, it can look like nothing happened at all. But inside, your dog's world has narrowed. Something familiar is approaching, and their body is preparing without making a big announcement about it. This is also the stage where dogs sometimes move closer to the door with the casual confidence of someone who absolutely did not plan this in advance and just happened to end up here. They may sit down, they may lie down, they may simply stand there quietly as if they are waiting for confirmation that they already believe is coming. Of course, sound is not always perfect information. Hallways echo. Cars sound similar. Neighbors exist. And sometimes all the pieces line up just enough that your dog prepares emotionally for your return, only to discover that the door has opened for someone else entirely. What follows is often a brief moment of recalibration, where your dog has to decide whether to be polite, offended, or suddenly very interested in something on the floor, as if that was the plan all along. What matters is not that they were wrong, it is that they were ready. Your dog's system is tuned toward you. When the information is unclear, they lean toward reunion. They assume it is you because most of the time it is. By the time you actually step inside, your dog has already heard several versions of your arrival in advance. The ending has been building quietly in sound long before the door ever opens. And when you walk in to find them waiting, what feels like perfect timing is really just a dog who has been listening to the world carefully, confident enough in the pattern of your life together to be ready before you arrive. Smell and sound explain how your dog notices changes in the world around them, but they do not fully explain when those changes begin to matter, because for dogs, time is not something that lives in their thoughts, it lives in their bodies. Dogs do not experience the passing of time as a number moving forward. They experience it as a physical sensation that slowly shifts throughout the day, the same way hunger builds or tiredness settles in without anyone announcing it or putting it on a calendar. When you leave for a short time, your dog's body reacts one way. The house barely changes. The quiet feels temporary, like when you step into another room, and they are pretty sure you will be right back, even if their definition of right back is already a little dramatic. Your dog might nap, reposition, glance toward the door once or twice, and then move on, because everything still feels close to normal. Your absence has a shape, but it is a small one, easy to hold. A long absence feels different. When you are gone all day, the house settles into a deeper quiet. The sounds thin out, the day stretches, and your dog's body adjusts to that longer rhythm without ever needing to think about it. They sleep more deeply, they wake more slowly, they change nap locations with the seriousness of someone managing a very important schedule. even though from the outside it just looks like a dog migrating from the couch to the rug to the one spot where the sun used to be. This is not sadness in the dramatic sense, and it is not boredom the way we think of it. It is an adaptation. It is a nervous system settling into the reality of a long wait, learning how to live inside the quiet without constantly checking whether something has gone terribly wrong. Most of the time, dogs are very good at this, even if they still sigh a little louder than necessary when the day really drags on. As the hours pass, something subtle begins to change. The waiting does not stay flat. It has a curve to it. At first, the absence feels open-ended, like it could last forever or end at any moment. But as the day moves forward, that feeling slowly tightens. Not because your dog knows what time it is, but because their body remembers how long this usually lasts. The emotional space of the day begins to feel familiar, like a room they have been in many times before. This is the part humans often miss because nothing obvious is happening yet. Your dog may still be lying down. They may still look perfectly calm, but inside, the feeling of the day has shifted from waiting to almost. Almost does not have a sound. Almost does not have a smell. Almost is a bodily memory, the same kind that tells your dog dinner is coming soon, even if you have not touched the food bowl yet. Your dog has felt this moment hundreds of times before. It is the stretch of the day when the house usually wakes back up, when the quiet usually breaks, when absence usually turns back into presence. And because dogs learn through repetition, their bodies recognize this moment long before there is anything concrete to confirm it, which is why some dogs start hovering near the door like they are early for an appointment they do not want to miss. This is also why dogs sometimes wait, even when you are running late, because their bodies are following the schedule they learned from you, not the one traffic decided to invent that day. From their point of view, the feeling says it is time, and feelings, as we all know, can be very convincing. It is important to understand that this is not impatience. It is not longing in the human sense. It is an expectation. Your dog's body has learned that the world behaves in a certain way, and that learning creates safety. Waiting in this moment is not stressful. It is grounded. It is the quiet confidence that something reliable is about to happen, even if they are mildly offended that it is taking longer than usual. This is why dogs sometimes move closer to the door without excitement, without pacing, without drama. They are not reacting to a signal. They are aligning themselves with the part of the day that feels like the ending, positioning themselves the way someone does when they know the credits are about to roll and they want a good seat. And when you finally do arrive, what looks like perfect timing is actually the result of a nervous system that has learned the shape of your absence and the feeling of its conclusion. Your dog did not count the hours. They felt them pass, one familiar day at a time, and decided to be ready just in case this was the moment everything made sense again. Waiting looks simple from the outside, but it is actually one of the most emotionally complicated things a dog does. It only works if you believe the ending is coming. Your dog waits because experience has taught them that you return, and that belief did not arrive fully formed. It was built slowly, one ordinary day at a time, through hundreds of small moments where you left and came back without making a big deal out of it. In the beginning, when a dog is still learning your rhythms, waiting can feel uncertain. They may follow you from room to room before you leave. They may watch the door after it closes. They may check windows or listen for sounds that are not there yet. This is not misbehavior. It is a dog gathering information, trying to understand how the world works when the person they care about disappears and reappears without explanation. Over time, something shifts. The pattern repeats often enough that it starts to feel reliable. You leave, you return. The day moves forward. Nothing terrible happens. And gradually, your dog's nervous system relaxes into that rhythm. Waiting stops feeling like a question and starts feeling like a statement. This is how it usually goes. A dog who trusts this pattern waits differently. Their body softens, they settle. They may choose a spot near the door and lie down, not because they are worried, but because they are confident. They are not watching the door like something might go wrong. They are simply positioning themselves where the ending tends to happen. The same way a person might wait near the gate at an airport long before boarding actually begins, just in case. This kind of waiting is quiet. It can look boring. It can look like nothing at all. And if you have ever checked a pet camera expecting to see a dramatic display of missing you, only to find your dog asleep in an unflattering position, you have already seen what trust looks like in practice. Not all waiting looks calm, though, and that matters too. Some dogs pace. Some check the door repeatedly. Some seem unable to settle. And if you have ever watched this while standing in the cereal aisle, trying to decide between two nearly identical boxes, and felt like a monster for being gone so long, you are also not alone. This kind of waiting does not mean your dog loves you more. It means the pattern still feels uncertain to them for one reason or another. What both kinds of waiting have in common is attachment. Both come from caring. Both come from a dog whose world is organized around your presence and absence. The difference is how safe that organization feels inside its body. Waiting, in this sense, is a mirror. It reflects the history of your routines, the predictability of your returns, and the emotional environment you have built together. When your dog waits calmly, they are not just passing the time. They are demonstrating trust in the shape of their life with you. And that trust is not loud. It does not announce itself. It looks like a dog who knows how the story usually ends and feels comfortable enough to wait for it, even if the ending is running a little late today. For all their careful observation and impressive pattern recognition, dogs are still, occasionally, very sure about things that are not actually happening. This is not a flaw in the system so much as a side effect of how hopeful that system is. When the clues line up just enough to suggest that you might be coming home, your dog's body prepares as if the conclusion is already written, even if reality has not quite caught up yet. The house feels right. The timing feels close. The day has reached that familiar stretch where waiting usually ends. Maybe a car slowed down outside. Maybe footsteps echoed in the hallway. Maybe the air shifted in a way that felt promising. And so your dog gets ready, because this combination of cues has meant you so many times before that it feels safer to expect you than not to. This is often where you see the classic door wait that does not quite pay off. Your dog goes to their spot. They sit, they stand, they lie down, and then stand again, just in case. From the outside, it can look like a mistake, but from the inside, it feels like a reasonable conclusion based on the information available. And when the door finally opens to reveal a neighbor, a delivery driver, or someone who smells absolutely nothing like you, there is usually a brief pause where your dog has to reconcile expectation with reality. How dogs handle this moment varies. Some recover instantly and decide the new person is acceptable. Some look genuinely offended, as if the universe made a promise it failed to keep. Some pretend nothing happened at all and become deeply interested in the floor, the wall, or the concept of dust, anything to suggest they were never waiting in the first place. What matters is not that your dog was wrong, it is how they were wrong. They leaned toward hope. They assumed reunion. Even when the information was incomplete, their bodies were prepared for you. That bias is not accidental. It is built from experience. When coming home has been reliable often enough, expectation becomes the safest option. Being wrong in this case does not undo the trust. It barely dents it. Your dog simply adjusts and returns to waiting, because most of the time, the story they expect does arrive. One false alarm does not outweigh hundreds of correct endings. There is something quietly emotional about this willingness to be wrong in your direction. Your dog would rather get excited too early than miss the moment entirely. They would rather assume you are coming than assume you are not. And that choice tells you something important about how they experience their world. So the next time you open the door and your dog is already there, try not to rush past that moment, because what you are seeing is not a trick, and it is not magic. It is a dog who has been paying attention all day in ways we rarely think about. They have been reading the house the way a human reads a clock, noticing the light, the sound, the feel of the quiet, and the slow shift toward the part of the day when waiting usually comes to an end. Your dog did not suddenly know the future. They knew the pattern. They knew how the day normally unfolded. They knew that absence has a shape and that shape tends to close familiarly. While you were gone, they were not counting minutes or watching the door nonstop, even if it sometimes feels like that when you walk in. They were living through the day, resting, repositioning, checking in on the house, and quietly sensing when everything started to feel like it was lining up again. By the time you arrive, your dog has already experienced several versions of your return in their body. The almost, the maybe, not yet. The feeling that this is usually about the time. And because that feeling has been right so many times before, being ready feels like the sensible choice. This is why it feels emotional when you see them waiting. It is not just because they missed you, though they did. It is because you were expected. You were part of the plan. Your return was woven into the shape of their day, the same way dinner, sleep, and that one spot on the couch are woven into it as well. And if your dog is staring at the door right now, while you are watching this, sitting a little too close, glancing back at you like you are clearly forgetting something important, according to them, you are already late. Not dramatically late, just late enough to deserve a look. If this made you smile or notice your dog doing this a little more often, like the video, subscribe to Just Paw Facts and tell us what your dog does when they think you are on your way home. Because every dog has their own version of this ritual, whether it is waiting by the door, watching the window like a tiny security guard, or bringing a toy to the entryway, just in case this is a special occasion. Until next time, keep noticing the small things. Your dog already does.